A chimpanzee dancing and clapping to the beat of the music. Browsing Instagram as well as a teenager? Here are 15 ways chimps are as smart as humans. Number 15. Responding to music. Throughout the animal kingdom, there are species that create their own tunes, from whale songs to birds chirping. Virtually every tone you can think of is made naturally by a creature, but these are all their ways of communicating. Only humans create music purely for pleasure, and it's rare to see an animal also reacting to it for enjoyment. That is, except for chimps. It takes a certain level of intellect to analyze melodies and interpret them for fun. But as this video from the Chimp Eden Rescue Center in South Africa shows, chimps are more than capable of it. Here, a musician is playing a handpan, and the chimps are quite clearly enjoying the show, and even dancing along with it. Amazingly, they even seem to be moving their bodies in time with the music, again a behavior that's only ever usually seen in humans. And even then, not everyone's able to do it properly. Number 14. Using smartphones. Recent changes in technology have fundamentally changed the way we interact with the world around us, and in many ways it has created an even greater gulf between us and the rest of the animal kingdom. One of the most important developments in recent years has been the introduction of smartphones and their touchscreens. And on the face of it, you'd expect that only humans are able to understand and use them. We often get addicted to social media apps, but it turns out chimps are just as capable of doing the same thing too. This is a video of Sugriva, who's been given a device with Instagram on it. As you can see, the chimp is quite easily able to scroll between posts and to search what it wants to watch, in a similar way to how a child would. The fact that Sugriva is able to comprehend what's happening and is picking and enjoying particular videos shows a level of intelligence far beyond most other animals, and at least on par with humans when we're first starting to learn how to use technology. Number 13. Watching magic. Do you remember the first time you saw a magic trick, and what you saw absolutely blew your mind? When performed correctly, they can make you rethink what you thought you knew about how the world works, and at least for a moment, you're left in a state of disbelief. If you break down what happens with a trick, you first have to have an understanding of the way objects exist in the world and their usual behaviors, and then recognize when something happens that's contrary to this. Most animals don't have the ability to conceive when something abnormal has happened, let alone be entertained by it, but studies have shown chimps to be more than capable of this. Here, a monkey is being shown a simple trick where the magician makes an object disappear by sleight of hand. Once the piece of paper has vanished, the monkey is overcome by surprise and is clearly impressed by what it's just seen. Can you think of any other animal that would have been as excited by a trick as this? And it surely proves a level of intellect beyond most others. Number 12. Yawning. Humans tend to yawn when they're feeling tired or need to inhale more oxygen, but there's also one other thing that can make you uncontrollably yawn, when someone else does it first. It's something that's called an echo phenomenon, when someone's behavior is instinctively reproduced by the next person, but researchers have long wondered why this actually happened, and what the evolutionary advantage of it would be. The leading theory is that a form of empathy which shows your understanding of the other person's physiological and emotional state. By yawning as well, it shows that you're in sync with how they're feeling and increases the social connection. The process relies on the part of the brain responsible for interpreting other people's actions, but amazingly, chimps have this too. They can catch yawns in the same way that we do, and they don't just do it when they see another chimp yawn. They also do it when humans yawn as well. It's even more astonishing that the phenomenon can work between species and doesn't necessarily work the other way. Could this then be proof that chimps are actually more empathetic than we are, and that they're able to become more attuned with our emotional reactions than we are with theirs? Number 11. Fist bumps. Chimps are highly sociable animals and develop complex hierarchical structures in the wild. They rely on interacting and communicating with one another, but without the ability to speak like we do, they are far more adept at signaling than we are. This makes it possible for us to speak with them through various means of sign language. But even if you don't have enough time to do this, they soon pick up on other signals too. Here, the chimp wants the keeper to go with him to the new hut that's just been built, and behaves just like you'd imagine a young child would. They hold hands as the chimp leads the way, then it climbs up, pulls the keeper up onto the platform with it by counterbalancing its weight, and then, at the end, does a celebratory fist bump. There's no other animal in the world that would behave anyway like this, and shows how smart chimps truly are. Number 10. Chat-up techniques. Animals have a variety of courtship techniques designed to attract their ideal mates, but there are perhaps none as complicated as human relationships, which involve physical displays of affection, but also require an extra element of personality too. It takes a level of emotional intelligence to perfect a foolproof chat-up technique, but we aren't the only ones that are capable of doing it. Here, a woman is visiting a wildlife reserve and is having a photo op with one of the animals, but this is no ordinary orangutan, and it's clearly taken a shine to her. It begins with a big grin across its face, before taking her hand to kiss it, putting her arm over its shoulders, and then planting a big kiss on her cheek. After realizing its attempts don't seem to be getting it anywhere, the orangutan steps up its game and gear and leans back onto her lap and brings her head down for a kiss, before putting its arms around her again. It's certainly more forceful than would be appropriate in a bar, and is something that's done for comedy value at the animal sanctuary. But behind the behavior is a clear emotional understanding and a desire to be friendly and socialize with people. Number 9. Household chores. One of the most boring and frustrating things that we as humans have to do is undoubtedly the household chores. It's certainly important to make sure our homes are clean and tidy, and while animals can also be meticulous about the way that their nests look, we do things on a whole different level. Chimps, though, are more like us than anything else, and they can strive to achieve the same level of perfection as even the most obsessive of people. Here, a chimp at Lincoln Park Zoo has become tired of sleeping on the rocky floor, and so is making its bed from straw. It takes the same care as a human might if they had the same materials to hand, and at the end even nestles into it like we would too. Our time asleep is an important part of the day when our brains organize all of the information that they've collected while we're awake, and the same goes for chimps too. Their sleep patterns are very similar to those of a toddler, which suggests that they have an equal level of brain functionality to them as well. We are constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. Fishing. One of the reasons humans have been able to become the dominant species on the planet is our ability to use tools. It's not actually as simple as just constructing things, because we have to be able to visualize how we want to use them before we start making them. And it's this forethought that we're able to do, but very few other animals can. Chimps, however, have a basic understanding of the world around them in a similar way to us, and are therefore able to construct tools to help them with what they're trying to do. This chimp has spotted some fish in the water in its enclosure, so has picked up a stick to disturb the water's surface in an attempt to catch them. The way it manipulates the stick is very similar to how a human would try the same task, and it's definitely a trial and error technique where it's learning from what works and what doesn't. Again, very few animals can think things through like this and manipulate objects in this way, and the way it's acting is definitely surprisingly human-like in appearance. Number 7. Self-recognition. Self-recognition is when you're able to identify your own reflection, and is the ability that humans start to develop around the age of 18 to 24 months old. It requires a vague idea of the sense of self and the comprehension that your own movements are being replicated on the object you're looking at, and isn't something that most animals will ever achieve. You only need to look at the way a dog will continually bark or chase its own reflection in a mirror to see that it requires a higher level of intelligence to understand. But it's something that monkeys can develop even if they do appear to be startled at first. This pet monkey, whose owners already tried to make as human-like as possible by dressing it in clothes, is exploring around the house and has found the mirror on the closet. To start with, it's unsure about what it's looking at, but as it begins to understand that it's actually a reflection that it's looking at, it starts moving its arms and body to get to grips with it. This ability is important in the wild because it prevents primates from trying to attack or approach their own reflections in the water in the same way they would to an unknown visitor, and allows them to focus on the more pressing concerns at hand. Number 6. Knocking on the door. If you've ever been locked out of home or you're trying to get someone's attention, the first thing you do is start banging on the door to get a response. We've all been there when someone's taken far too long in the bathroom, and knocks start getting louder and louder and more impatient. And that's exactly what the chimp in this video is doing. It hasn't just randomly started banging on the door from stress though, because it actually has a relatively nice enclosure to live in. What's happened here is that the keeper is a few minutes late for feeding time, and the chimp has realized this. Amazingly, there aren't any clocks around the facility, but the chimp still knows that it should be fed at the same time every day. And on this occasion, the keeper hadn't kept to the schedule. This can only be proof that they are natural timekeepers and have a far more sense of the passage of time than we do, which is seriously impressive. Number 5. Technology problems. While technology has improved many aspects of our lives, we still face the inevitability that at some point it'll go wrong. No matter how good you are with computers, you'll occasionally encounter a problem that you don't know how to fix, and it can soon become one of the most frustrating experiences of modern life. Chimps have been shown in a number of studies to be more than capable of interacting with computers, where they are particularly good at memory tasks and basic math. However, they too get increasingly frustrated when things don't go exactly to plan, which is what's happening to the chimp in this video. It enjoys playing a game on this laptop, but on this occasion, the power has been switched off. What follows is the chimp going through just about every problem-solving technique and emotion that humans would do in the same situation, which surely proves they're just as intelligent as us. Number 4. Learning to swim. Humans have the ability to problem-solve behaviors to find the best way of doing things, and our capacity for self-taught learning is second to none. It's this that allows us to adapt to new environments and situations, and while most animals develop techniques for adapting, they don't do it in the same kind of analytical way that we do. Chimps are, however, quite like us, and they exhibit many of the same behaviors that human children do. Here, Cooper the chimp is learning how to swim, but rather than simply find a method to move through the water from one place to another, he's also playing around and trying out different positions too. He's showing a great aptitude for understanding the orientation of his body and how moving his limbs affects the way that he either floats or sinks. It's almost identical to how children learn to control themselves when they're out of their depth and require a human level of intellect to manage. Number 3. Creating art. For centuries, we've celebrated some people's ability to put paint to canvas to create stunning landscapes and representations of the real world, but art comes in far more shapes and forms than just that. Abstract images are just as pleasing to the eye, but there's more to it than simply blending colors. There has to be a flow and a cohesion to the work that comes from a great deal of practice and understanding of imagery. You'd think that only humans would be able to paint artworks worthy of display in a gallery. And while this may not be to your particular taste or liking, chimps have shown an ability to create them too. In 2012, the Grant Museum of Zoology at the University College of London held an exhibition of artworks that were made by a variety of animals. But by far the most impressive were the ones done by the chimps. The paintbrushes and paint were placed inside the cages, while the canvas was held up on the other side of the door, and you'd easily believe that some of the pieces that were created were done by a human's hand. Number 2. Helping others in distress. Empathy is a trait exhibited across the animal kingdom, but the extent to which animals display it is often used by researchers to infer the level of intellect that they possess. It requires the ability to put yourself in someone else or someone else's shoes to understand their perspective and desires, and involves a certain degree of abstract thought beyond your own needs. It's something that we develop as we grow older, and most psychologists would argue is only fully realized by the time we reach adulthood, if at all. It's what drives us to help others in distress or try to help them with what they're doing. And while some animals may appear to be empathetic, apart from us, it's only really apes that show it to a high degree. This even extends to them offering assistance to other species of animal, as seen in this video. A baby chick has fallen into the water in an enclosure in a zoo, and an orangutan that lives there has come to its aid. Not only does it feel the need to rescue the chick, but it decides the best way to do it is to use a leaf as a tool. It manages to pick up the chick from the water and put it down on the grass, and even nudges it to make sure it's alive and able to move on its own. Number 1. Searching for food. Every animal has its own ways to find and retrieve food for itself, something that they either have special adaptations to achieve or require certain behaviors that are passed on from generation to generation. The problem, though, is that if they face a shortage of the food that they're used to, it becomes very difficult to learn how to develop new techniques to obtain something different, because this requires analytical skills that only the smartest of creatures are capable of. Humans can, of course, learn to adapt in most environments, and apes are fairly good at it too. Here, a monkey has taught itself how to harvest coconuts from a tree and is being used by locals to collect the fruit for them too. First, it climbs up the tree, then twists the coconuts until they're free from the branch. Amazingly, according to the owner, it had taken just 5 days to teach the monkey how to do this, and it worked out most of the technique on its own. Subscribe to Top 5s for more and check out some of our other popular videos.